All right, let's jump into another deep dive. Today, we're going to be tackling AI and how it's playing out in the real world.
Sounds fascinating.
Yeah, and you guys sent in a ton of material, including AI Snake Oil by Arvind Narayanan.
I've heard good things about that one.
Yeah, we'll be getting into all sorts of stuff: entertainment, criminal justice, even content moderation.
Oh, wow.
You'd be surprised how AI is already making waves in all these areas.
I bet.
We've also got some pretty interesting examples of where AI, well, kind of falls flat.
Oh, that's interesting. Always good to look at both sides of the coin.
Exactly. And we have a great expert with us today to help us make sense of it all.
I'm happy to be here. I'm excited to dig into all this material and see what we can uncover.
Me too. Now, one thing that really jumped out at me, especially in AI snake oil, is, well, how do we even define AI?
Right. It seems like everyone's throwing that term around, but what does it actually mean?
Yeah, it's like we're all talking about different things when we say AI.
You've hit the nail on the head.
Hmm.
Narayan makes a strong argument about how the term gets tossed around, often driven by marketing hype rather than, an actual definition.
So it's more about buzz than substance sometimes.
You could say that, and that lack of clarity can really lead to misunderstandings.
Makes sense. So how do we even start to talk about AI's impact if we can't agree on what it is?
Exactly. It's a fundamental problem. Narayan actually uses this great example, an insurance pricing formula. Let's say it was built using machine learning, analyzing tons of data to find patterns.
Okay, sounds pretty AI, right?
You'd think so, but
Yeah.
then a human expert could create that exact same formula just using their knowledge and experience.
Interesting. So the outcome is the same.
Exactly, but one's labeled AI and the other isn't, just because of how it was made.
So it's not just about what it does, but how it does it. Huh, that's tricky.
It is, and it makes you wonder, are we always getting true AI solutions?
Or just, old ideas dressed up in shiny new packaging.
That's the snake oil Narayan warns us about.
Mm.
We've got to look beyond the hype and get to the real capabilities.
Be critical, not just get swept up in the excitement.
Exactly. Now, speaking of excitement, another big area I wanted to touch on is predictive AI.
Oh, yeah. That seems to be everywhere these days.
It is. Think about it. Criminal justice, healthcare, even hiring. All using predictive AI to try and, well, predict the future.
But can we actually predict the future? I mean, with any real accuracy?
That's a huge question. While we can sometimes forecast broader things like traffic patterns or what consumers might buy.
Okay, so big picture stuff.
Right, but trying to predict what will happen to a specific person, that gets a lot more complicated.
Yeah, that makes sense. Individual lives are messy.
They are. And the sources you provided actually highlighted this competition, the Fragile Families Challenge. Researchers were trying to use AI to predict what would happen to kids by the time they turned 15.
Oh, wow. So predicting a child's future based on their early life.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And they used tons of data, really sophisticated AI models.
So what happened? Were they right?
Surprisingly, the accuracy was really low.
Even with all that data and fancy AI?
Yeah, it suggests that maybe there are just some things we can't predict, even with all the tools in the world.
So are we just throwing darts in the dark when it comes to individual outcomes?
Not necessarily, but it's a good reminder to be cautious, especially when making decisions that impact people's lives.
Right. It's not just about numbers. It's about real people.
Absolutely. We have to be aware of the limitations. You know, this makes me think about something else we saw in the research, this idea of luck and how advantage builds on itself.
You mean how some people just seem to get all the breaks?
Kind of. It challenges the idea that success is all about talent and hard work. Timing, chance encounters, even tiny decisions, they can all have a huge impact.
Like that classic example of Star Wars, rejected by so many studios before becoming, well, Star Wars.
Exactly. It makes you wonder how many great ideas never see the light of day because of bad luck. And then you have social media, where one post can go viral and change everything.
Yeah, totally random.
It's a perfect example of how advantage can snowball. You get a little lucky, and suddenly you're at the top.
So how do we navigate a world where luck seems to play such a big role?
I think it's a call to be open to the unexpected. Embrace experimentation. Don't let setbacks get you down. Sometimes those detours lead to the most interesting places.
Love that. So it's not just about the grind, it's about being ready for when opportunity knocks. And speaking of exciting new things, we've got to talk about generative AI.
It's hard to ignore, right? AI creating images from text, writing stories, even composing music.
It feels like magic sometimes, but how does it actually work?
Magical might be pushing it, but it's pretty incredible. At its core, it's all about data. Massive data sets and patterns. Imagine feeding a system millions of images and descriptions.
So the AI learns to connect words and visuals.
Exactly. And once it's got this huge database, it can create new stuff based on those patterns. Give it a prompt like cat wearing a top hat riding a unicycle, and boom, it creates a brand new image.
Wow, it's like the AI is actually understanding the world. But we also have to talk about the downsides, right? Ethical concerns and all that.
You're right, there are definitely concerns. A big one is how it impacts artists. Think about it, these systems learn from images and text created by real people.
But those artists aren't getting paid or even credited.
Often not. It's a huge issue like plagiarism on a massive scale. And it raises tricky questions about who owns what in the age of AI.
Yeah, who profits from the work? And then there's the potential for bias, right? Like those examples of AI generating stereotypical or even harmful content.
Exactly. AI systems are only as good as the data they're trained on. If the data is biased, the AI will be too. It's a reminder that we need to be very careful about what we feed these systems.
And of course, there's the potential for misuse, deep fakes, and spreading misinformation.
Right. The ability to create these realistic fake videos is a real concern.
It's clear we can't just be dazzled by the shiny new tech. We have to think about the consequences. Now, before we move on, we should touch on content moderation, another area where AI is becoming really important.
Yeah, social media is so huge now, and AI is playing a big role in trying to manage all that content.
But there are definitely issues with how it's being used.
It's a tough problem. Even with good intentions, things can go wrong.
That example of Facebook taking down the Napalm Girl photo really stuck with me.
Right. Such an iconic image. I mean, it won a Pulitzer Prize. It captures a crucial moment in history.
And Facebook took it down. Why?
Well, the initial report said that the AI flagged it for child nudity, but it turns out Facebook knew what the photo was.
So it was a human decision.
Yeah. They removed it because of their community standards.
That's almost more worrying, right? Because it means that even with humans involved, deciding what's okay and what's not is incredibly difficult.
You're right. It highlights a fundamental problem with content moderation. There's no easy answer to what's harmful and what's not. Different cultures, different contexts, it's always changing.
So how can AI possibly keep up with that? It seems impossible.
It is really tough. AI learns from past data, not the ever-changing present. It can spot old patterns, but struggles with new contexts, the subtleties of human language.
The research mentioned examples where AI flagged harmless stuff while missing actual hate speech. It seems like relying solely on AI for something as complex as content moderation is just setting ourselves up for failure.
It underscores the importance of human judgment, even with its flaws.
So what's the answer? Is effective content moderation even possible in the age of AI?
It's a big question. The research pointed to a few key things. Transparency, for one. We need to understand how these AI systems are making decisions.
Right, open up that black box and shine some light on the process.
Exactly. We can't just trust them blindly. And we need to move beyond this simplistic idea of good versus bad content.
It's not black and white. There's a lot of gray area.
Absolutely. We need policies that consider the context, the intent, the potential harm. AI alone can't handle that level of complexity. Humans have to be part of the equation.
So it seems like we're a long way from AI being able to moderate content effectively without human involvement. And we have to consider the fact that these platforms are businesses, right?
You've hit on another crucial point. Their main goal is engagement, not necessarily the well-being of their users.
The research talked about how these platforms are designed to keep us scrolling even if the content is harmful or divisive.
It's a fundamental conflict of interest. They make money by keeping us hooked, even if it's not good for us. So what can we do? Are we just powerless?
Yeah, it feels like a lot of this is out of our control.
It can feel that way.
Yeah.
But we're not totally helpless. We can be more aware of how these platforms work, think critically about what we see online, support independent journalism and groups holding these platforms accountable.
We can push for change.
Exactly. We have more power than we think. We're not just passive consumers. We can shape the online landscape. You know, there's another common narrative we hear about AI, that it's going to take all our jobs.
Or a robot takeover.
Yeah. There's genuine concern, but also a lot of hype. While AI can definitely automate some tasks and maybe displace some jobs, this idea that robots are going to steal all our jobs tomorrow is probably an oversimplification.
So no need to panic just yet.
Right. It's more likely to be a gradual process, and some industries will be affected more than others. And new jobs will emerge, too, as AI creates new opportunities.
It's like with ATMs. They didn't get rid of bank tellers. They changed the nature of their jobs.
Exactly. Instead of fearing robots, maybe we should focus on adapting, learning new skills to thrive in this changing world.
So learning to work alongside AI, not just being replaced by it.
Precisely. And this means investing in education and training, but also thinking about policies to support workers.
Things like stronger labor protections, or maybe even universal basic income.
Right. The future of work is something we can actively shape, not just something that happens to us.
Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground here, but this is just the beginning. We'll be back in part 2 to delve even deeper into the world of AI and its impact on our lives.
You know, one thing that often gets overlooked in all the talk about AI is the human side of it.
The human side.
Yeah, all those people working behind the scenes, making sure these AI systems actually work.
Oh, right, like the data annotation work. The sources talked about that.
It's huge. This whole workforce, labeling images, transcribing audio, basically teaching AI how to see the world.
It's like the hidden engine powering all this AI magic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's often overlooked. We get caught up in the cool stuff AI can do, but we forget about the people doing this often tedious, essential work.
And the sources mention that these workers often aren't treated very well.
Yeah, sadly, that's often the case. Low wages, tough working conditions. It raises some ethical questions about the whole AI industry.
It's like, are we just replicating existing inequalities, building this AI revolution on the backs of underpaid workers?
It's a valid concern. A few at the top benefit from AI advancements, while others are stuck in these invisible, often exploitative jobs. And it's not just the paying conditions, the work itself can be really tough.
I can imagine spending hours labeling images of violence or hate speech. That can't be easy.
It's emotionally draining.
Yeah.
We need to shed more light on these practices, advocate for fair treatment of these data annotators. They're crucial to AI's success.
They're the unsung heroes, making the magic happen. We've covered a lot of ground here. The definition problem, the limits of prediction, the ethical considerations around generative AI, content moderation, the human labor behind it all.
It's a lot to unpack.
So where do we go from here? What does the future hold for AI?
It's the big question, right? And while we can't predict the future, the sources you said did offer some interesting perspectives. One thing that kept popping up was the importance of, well, us, the public.
You mean we have a role to play in shaping the future of AI?
Absolutely. It starts with understanding how AI works, what it can and can't do, and then having informed discussions, advocating for policies that reflect our values.
It's not just about the tech itself, it's about the bigger picture.
Exactly. We need to move beyond the hype and the fear, engage in thoughtful conversations about the benefits and risks. This is a conversation that involves everyone.
The sources also talked a lot about regulation. That seems crucial, especially given how powerful AI is becoming.
I agree. We need safeguards to make sure it's developed and used responsibly. The good news is, many frameworks for regulation already exist. Think about privacy laws, anti-discrimination laws, consumer protection, safety regulations.
So we can adapt those for the AI world.
We can. But it's not just about new laws, it's about making sure existing ones are enforced, holding companies accountable. We need strong regulatory bodies, transparency from companies, and public awareness to keep everyone in check.
It sounds like a big task, but we can't just sit back and let AI develop on its own.
Exactly. And there are already people doing great work, pushing for ethical AI, demanding transparency, exploring new ways to govern AI.
It's inspiring to see people fighting for a more human-centered approach to AI. And it's not always about grand gestures or changing laws. Sometimes it's about local action, like that story about the high school in New Jersey.
Oh yeah, where the students challenged the school's ban on AI tools.
They wanted to learn how to use AI responsibly, not just avoid it.
They saw it as a tool to enhance their education. They're ahead of the game, thinking critically about how to integrate AI into their lives.
It's a good reminder that we need to be empowering young people to participate in shaping the future of AI.
They're the ones who will inherit this world, so their voices need to be heard. So we've covered the definition problem, the limits of prediction, the rise of generative AI, content moderation, the human labor behind AI, the need for public engagement and regulation, and the potential impact on the future of work. We've looked at the good and the bad, and it's clear that AI is already reshaping our world.
So much to think about. As we wrap up part 2, what's the key takeaway we want our listener to grasp?
That the future of AI is not set in stone. It's not some inevitable force that we're powerless against. We have choices to make, individually and together, that will shape how AI evolves.
It's not about being for or against AI. It's about understanding it, engaging in meaningful discussions, and pushing for an AI that benefits everyone.
Exactly. We need to move past the hype and the fear, adopt a more nuanced, critical, and hopeful perspective on what AI could become. What question should we leave our listener to ponder as we move into the final part of this deep dive?
Good one.
How about this? Can we create a world where AI is used responsibly, focused on fairness, transparency, and human well-being? Or are we headed toward an AI that benefits a select few at the expense of everyone else?
Ooh, that's a tough one, but a really important one. It's something we should all be thinking about. Welcome back to the show. We've been on quite the AI journey, haven't we?
We have, from defining it to wondering if it's going to take our jobs.
But through it all, I keep coming back to this idea that we're not just passengers on this AI train.
Right, the future isn't written yet. We have a say in how this all unfolds.
And the choices we make now, they're going to have huge consequences down the line.
No doubt about it. It's a crucial time. And it's not just happening in some lab somewhere. These choices are being made in classrooms, workplaces, even just using our phones.
So we all have a responsibility to pay attention, get informed.
Absolutely. And I think it's helpful to, imagine different futures, not just the scary ones we always hear about.
Oh, I like that. Let's get a little optimistic. Where could AI actually make the world better, make things more fair and just?
Well, the research had some interesting ideas. One was using AI to personalize education. Imagine a world where every student gets a learning plan tailored just for them.
Whoa, like an AI tutor that knows exactly how you learn best.
Exactly. It can help students from all backgrounds succeed, really level the playing field.
That's amazing. And AI could help with some of the world's big problems, right? Climate change, poverty, diseases.
Absolutely. There's already a lot of work being done, using AI to develop better renewable energy, analyze data to fight poverty, even develop new medicines.
It's hopeful, right? Seeing AI used to make the world healthier and more sustainable. But as we've learned, it's not guaranteed. It depends on the choices we make.
It's not just about the tech itself, it's about our values, the rules we put in place, making sure AI benefits everyone, not just a few.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing we want our listeners to remember?
Stay curious, stay engaged, stay informed. Don't be afraid to ask questions, challenge the status quo, demand transparency from those in charge.
And remember, AI is a tool. It can be used for good or bad. The future is in our hands. Let's make it count.
Well said. It's been a pleasure exploring this with you. We hope this has sparked some ideas, encourage everyone to join the conversation about AI.
It's a conversation that needs to happen. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and keep those brains buzzing.